All right, picking up with the Atlantic Charter, FDR and Winston Churchill. Okay, so Winston Churchill is Great Britain's Prime Minister, and the two of them begin meeting uh, pre-war and actually become very good friends. So not only are they extremely strong leaders for their country, they are friends and they make a vow to win this war together. Okay, and they sign this thing called the Atlantic Charter, basically an agreement that we're going to win this together. Um, Collective security, self-determination, i.e., you get to choose your own government, economic cooperation, freedom of the seas. 4 days later is the Greer incident. There's a little extra page in your book that you can read about that. Again, sinking of a U.S. ship. FDR uses German attack on the Greer to sway public opinion. Okay, and he is going to mislead them. He's going to use it as a propaganda moment to sway Americans from isolationism, lean more towards war and see Germany as a direct threat. This is when FDR says that basically the United States is now in an undeclared naval war with Germany. Okay, our our ships have the right to shoot, to sink German ships. Congress scraps the cash and carry. Again, these neutrality acts are going out by the wayside. Okay, and we're leaning more and more towards war, doing whatever we have to. We're now allowing U.S. merchant ships to transport war goods to Great Britain, and they are armed. Okay, willing to shoot. Again, inching closer and closer to war. All right, what's going on in Japan? So this is all going on at the same time, right? The U.S. really wants to put a limit on Japanese expansion. FDR does not want war with Japan because Japan and Hitler are allied, okay? And FDR and Churchill see Hitler as the greater threat, okay? That's going to always be their number one priority. But again, U.S. opposes Japanese expansion. So we start to put embargoes on trade. We start limiting trade with Japan. Let's not forget, Japan's an island. They have limited resources. They get a lot of it by importing. So that is a way that we can hurt them. Note that FDR does not stop oil. He and his advisors see oil as a direct link to war. Okay. In July of 1941, Japan takes French Indochina, that's right here, Southeast Asia. And the United States responds by freezing Japanese assets in the US. Okay, they don't have access to anything, any money, any banking. And we end trade with Japan, including oil. All right. The US rejects the Hanoi FDR summit. The Japanese had reached out for peace talks. We reject, and we're again inching closer and closer to war. We have Operation Magic going on, which is basically our code breaking and cryptographers all working together to break codes and come up with our own codes to use. And we had cracked some of Japan's codes. We knew Japan was losing patience. They knew and we knew that war was coming. It was now just a question of when and where. The when and where is answered in December 7th, 1941. That is when the Japanese come and launch the surprise attack on Pearl Harbor, sinking and damaging 8 battleships, destroying 160 aircraft, killing over 2,400 U.S. soldiers, etc. The United States is fortunate that 3 of our carriers were actually out to sea doing maneuvers. 3 of our aircraft carriers, those are the big ships. They were out to sea doing maneuvers, so they did not get attacked. That was fortunate for us. Obviously, the attack turns U.S. sentiment sharply against the Japanese, and therefore the U.S. knows that we must retaliate. Why Pearl Harbor? Mistakes and a lack of information can explain the tragedy. We knew there was going to be an attack. We didn't know when and where. Um, uh, the warning was sent out far too slow without enough urgency. It definitely was not a conspiracy to drag us into war. Uh, we knew war was imminent. We didn't know it was going to be Pearl Harbor. We assume Hawaii is safe because it's so far from Japan. That was a misassumption on our behalf, and we had expected a closer attack in the Philippines. Okay. And the clash of systems here. Basically, what we're seeing in World War II is fascism, which is a brand of totalitarianism. Okay. Which equals no freedom, no rights, etc., versus democracy. This war turns into a war of ideals. All right. Germany and Japan want to divide the world into closed spheres of influence, making themselves more powerful and self-sufficient. The U.S. seeks a more liberal capitalistic world, free trade. We want to expand democracy, and the Axis powers are just the exact opposite, authoritarianism. They're very militaristic. Okay, we're looking back towards the same causes of World War One. The Axis powers charge the U.S. with a double standard, which is true to some extent. We're preaching democracy, we're preaching freedom, but we don't treat African Americans and people of color, Asians, Native Americans, we don't treat them that way. So they had a point with that. The United States claims its expansion and its own empire will benefit the world. So again, that there's a bit of arrogance there. We got called out on that. But overall, totalitarianism is, not a way to do things. And what we also see is the seeds of the Cold War, because while the Soviet Union is fighting with us, the Soviet Union is fighting with us because they saw and we saw Hitler as a bigger threat. Let's not forget that the Soviet Union was still totalitarianism. So we're seeing the seeds of the Cold War. All right, you guys, we'll see you in the next chapter.